Hey there, Dave. It is awesome to have you here on the Invested Teacher podcast. It's been a few weeks' time, maybe a month or so, since I was honored to be on your podcast,
There you
Property
go.
Profits. There it is, pointing to it for those who are watching on YouTube. And really excited to be able to bring you to the Invested Teacher audience, who we like to call the invested students. So, hey, tell them a little bit about yourself, Dave. Where are you coming to us from? And, what's your shtick?
Well, thanks, Kyle. I have to say, this is probably one of the only times in my life I feel comfortable talking with a math teacher.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? I will tell you this much. That was one of my goals as a math teacher, was always to get students to feel a little less anxious, a little less stressed when it came to math class, just the thought of math class. So right there, that's massive.
That is great, man. Where were you 40 some years ago? I tell you what, but it's
There it is. There it is.
it's
Well,
all
hey,
good.
so clearly you're not a math teacher. So let
No.
the audience know, who is Dave Dubeau, and what's going on in your world these days.
Yeah, so I am based in beautiful British Columbia, Canada, longtime real estate entrepreneur. Kind of grew up around real estate investing, Kyle. My family home was actually one unit in a sixplex that my grandfather and my father built. So always had
Oh,
tenants
nice.
around, just thought that was kind of normal. And then my parents split up and I went off with my mom. And there she was, a single mom, school teacher, and built up a portfolio of over 50 rental units, working as a school teacher, raising a snot-nosed kid, yours truly, back in the 70s and the 80s. So that was way before podcasts and coaching and mentoring and all that kind of stuff. So kind of grew up around that, didn't pay much attention to it, as a lot of teenagers don't pay much attention
Sure.
to what their parents are doing, but was kind of aware of it. My big brother Dan was involved with my mom in some deals. My very first investment was I saved up $200 and at age 12 or 13 invested in a duplex that they were building. And they fondly said that I owned the garbage stoop. That was that was that
That's
was
awesome.
that was my ownership. But really, didn't get going in real estate investing until about 2001, when I was actually living down in beautiful San Jose, Costa Rica. Had a language training company down there. Believe it or not, I was kind of a teacher, not a very good one, but
Yeah,
teaching
I'm
English
liking
as
it.
a second language to get those Costa Ricans speaking English gooder. And basically stumbled into, I guess, what we would call pre-foreclosure type deals. Did a couple of those. They made me a few bucks. So that was kind of cool. And then in 2003, I dragged my poor little Costa Rican family, my Costa Rican wife, and our two kids, and said, "Hey, we're going to start things over again from scratch in beautiful Kamloops, British Columbia." And so that's what we did. But then I had to figure out what was I going to do. I'd been overseas. I'd lived overseas for basically like 14 years. Came back to Canada, brand new city. I'm not from here originally, so no contacts, uh, no credit. I've been gone so long, I didn't have bad credit. I had zero credit. I'd
Yep.
never built up any credit. And I'd been self-employed for over a decade, so it's pretty much unemployable. So there I was trying to figure out what the hell am I going to do to, pay the bills. And that's when I heard about one of those. You remember those late night infomercials from way back in the day, Kyle?
Absolutely.
You too can
Absolutely.
get rich in real estate with little or no money down. I
Sign
said,
me up.
perfect. Yeah, that's what I got. Little or no money.
Yeah.
I hadn't been able to sell my business in Costa Rica. It was pretty tight. So I set away for this American Guru's How to Get Rich Quick course and put it into play because I was very, very motivated. And my initial kind of kick at the can with real estate investing, Kyle, was doing 18 creative deals in 18 months. So no money, low money down type stuff. And here's the big takeaway I had from that. Where all the Canadians were saying, well, that's American stuff doesn't work here in Canada. Yes, it does. It does work. Language might be a little bit different. I was very
Sure.
fortunate. I had a good realtor who was open-minded, very hard to find those guys. And he was
Mhm.
kind of like, here's the wonky thing I want to do. Here's how they say you can do it in the States. How can we do this in Canada? He said, yeah, I can't see. I've never seen it before. Can't see why not, though. So
Mhm.
we actually made it happen. So that's what I did for the first year and a half. Got hooked up with a local real estate guru who was just kind of getting rolling with his business. Went on board with him, kind of became the director of marketing, took a few years off of active real estate investing myself. Then fast forward to 2010, got into rent to own type deals, client first. So we'd find a tenant buyer, buy them a house, and then do a lease option with them for 2 or 3 years. And then fast forward a few years, got into multifamily real estate investing, not as the active partner so much, more as on the capital raising side of things for that. And these days I'm more of a passive investor and helping other, what I call mom and pop real estate investors to get started with raising private capital.
Holy smokes. Like, Dave, I wanted to stop you so many times.
Sorry, hard to stop me once you get me started there, Kyle. Sorry, man.
And it's great.
It's tell me what's up.
I've been keeping notes. I'm trying to, stick with everything. I want to roll all the way back. I want to go and I want to talk a little bit about your school teacher mother who managed to, essentially grow a 50-door portfolio. Wow. And something you said too, where you said, you kind of like, you weren't paying much attention to. And I think we're all, it's human nature, right? Like what's happening around you, you just sort of think this is just how things are. You're not thinking of why, like you're not thinking of how you landed where you did. It just happened. And then many years later, you kind of circled back, but tell me about your mother. Like, was she doing creative deals as well?
Oh,
like,
hell no.
Was she getting her capital from? Like, how was she able to sort of grow a portfolio that large on, it sounds like a single income after it sounds like her and your father had, parted ways.
That's a good question. I'm not absolutely sure. I do know she didn't do any joint ventures. I do know that she was a bit of a slumlord for a while. The properties that she was buying initially, you got to remember, this was up in Fort St. John, British Columbia, a very small town. I think, if memory serves me correctly, she paid $4,000 for her very first house.
Yep.
Like a little crappy house. So she was buying a few properties like that, and she was self-financing everything. And then she got into buying multi-family property. She actually built one from the ground up.
Wow.
Can't remember how many units that was, but I think it was close to 20 or something like that in Fort St. John. So she got financing, construction financing and stuff like that. Bought a couple of small apartment buildings in Penticton. And from what I understand, like, unfortunately, it all came crashing down on her when the 80s, mid 80s and those 18, 19, 20% interest rates came rolling through, and the banks called her loans, which was kind of nasty of them. So she ended up losing all of that and going bankrupt, unfortunately. But good thing she was a school teacher, because she was able to, she had the good pension and all that kind of good stuff. And even after that, she still kind of kept dabbling in real estate, and she moved down to Mexico and lived down there and had a few properties down there and different things like that. So she never really got out of it. Yeah.
Wow. What a fantastic story. And then, you world traveler, I guess, world traveler, essentially you went to a different part of the world and essentially started a life, and then, came all the way back to Canada, a different part of Canada, started from scratch. I got to ask you about this infomercial. Clearly, you were sold on this infomercial, but it sounds like there was something good in there, whether it was just the fact that it got you to act, right? We know that about sometimes investing in something. Oftentimes, you're putting your best effort in, or your best version of yourself in there. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, do you feel that program was what you needed at the time? Was it just a motivator to actually?
No, I got the program, and I actually went through the entire thing and took massive action on what I learned. It was really interesting, Kyle, because I sent away from that program, it was like $1,000 US or whatever, way back 20 some years ago. Right. And then the guru guy actually came through Canada. He was connected with the Real Estate Investment Network at that time, RAIN.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've heard of those guys. So when Don Campbell was running all of that. So the guru guy came to Edmonton and they put on a really big event. And it wasn't cheap. It was 3 or 4 grand or something like that just to attend this event. So I packed up my 75-year-old mother and took her to this event with me because she was still kind of into real estate investing stuff. And it was really, really interesting. There's like 500 or 600 people at this thing. Everybody paid a lot of money to be there. And the one thing I remember they did is they split the group up geographically. They said, okay, hey, everybody from BC, go over to that corner and network and connect with everybody and kind of get, see if you make any good connections. So I did that. And there was like 85 of us from BC in the corner. Of course, I was the only guy from Kamloops. Everybody else was from Vancouver and Victoria and whatnot. But a bunch of people said, hey, why don't we get together on a weekly basis and just kind of have a little real estate support group to help us all kind of get going? And I said, hey, that sounds great. Of course, it was going to be in Vancouver, which is about a 4-hour drive from where I live, but I said, hey, I'm in. So we got back, and the first weekend I jumped in my I Buy Houses minivan, which is what I was driving at the time.
I love it.
Zipped down to Vancouver, and there was there was a good sized group there. There was probably 35 or 40 people all together in this thing. And we kind of all got together, and it turned out I was the only one actually doing anything. So everybody said, okay, well, hey, we're going to take action. So for next week, everybody, make sure you've got your business cards done. I said, business cards done? For Christ's sake, I got decals all over my car. Business cards. I've been doing deals for several months. I got marketing coming out, my yin yang, but okay, whatever. I'll be supportive. So I jump back in the I Buy Houses minivan, go back to Kamloops. So this is between the event and all, this is a full day out of my life on a Saturday to go attend this thing next week. And they decide to do it weekly, right? Yay. So next week, jump in the car, drive down, went from 35 or 40 people down to about half. So there's about 20 people left. 0 people had actually got their business cards done. Nobody had done a damn thing in that week. So I'm getting hot under the collar. Drive back to Kamloops. Next week I go down, and it's whittled down to whatever. There's like 6 people left. I made the whole trip down there. Nobody had done a damn thing except for one lady. This was back in the day when the newspapers were still going. And we had 2 big newspapers in the province. We had the Vancouver Province and the Vancouver Sun, and they went to the entire province. And this dimwit had spent over $1,500 or $2,000 to take out a classified ad in both newspapers. It said, I buy houses, any condition, any price, anywhere. And she put that in there, and she got overwhelmed with calls from the entire province, but she hadn't cracked the book on what to do with any of these leads or any of this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
She just got, what do I do? And that's when I blew my stack. And I basically said, you are all idiots. I am never coming back here again. Take a hike. And I mean, the whole thing just fizzled out right there, but it was a good learning experience. Like it's amazing. Like so many people can have the exact same information and education, but it's all about how motivated are you to take action on it.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I'm sure that you probably look back to that experience and think to yourself, that was early in your, journey as well, right? So you were well ahead of where the rest of this group was, but you were probably not anywhere near where you are now, where actually a lot of the work you do is actually mentoring investors in raising capital, right? And looking back, I'm going to guess that you look at that group and go, holy smokes, like I could probably do a whole lot with that group nowadays, like knowing how to actually guide them and how to, sort of nudge them along this journey. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as you said, it really does come down to, are you clear on what it is you want? And then are you able to then kind of back map all the way to the beginning and go, okay, what's the very next action I need to take? And am I committed to putting the time and the effort into actually doing it?
Actually, you know what, Kyle? You are a much warmer, kinder, gentler human being than I am. I am not at all interested in doing that. I've tried the coaching and the mentoring a little bit. I don't have the patience for it. I was a shitty teacher back when I was teaching English. I mean, I don't have the disposition. That's why these days, rather than doing coaching and mentoring, we do done for you services where we basically just build everything for our clients, get it up and running for them, run it for them. That way we know it gets done and gets done right.
Right. Hey, and you know, kudos to you, because at the end of the day, I think there are some people that's, and now I'm just making this connection in the moment here, a little epiphany as we're chatting, that makes a ton of sense based on your experience in that particular scenario and what it is that you now do for people, right? And investors, in that you're going, listen, I know that there's this segment of a large segment of the population that aren't going to follow through. They're not going to follow through with the actions that they need to take. And you're kind of saying, listen, here's what's going to happen. We're going to make sure that all these pieces get put into place so that you can do what it is that you need to do. And there's no more, you know, getting stuck in the mud. So, you know, tell us a little bit more about what it is that you are offering. So you have sort of done for you services, and a lot of it is really focused around raising capital. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit? Like, who is that, you know, that ideal client that you look to serve that could really benefit? I'm guessing it's some of these people that, you know, were in that group.
No, it's not actually. Nope. None of those people would be my ideal client.
they're just so
ideal,
far from the goal that it's
yeah,
not, you know, they're not ready to do it.
No, we kind of got the Goldilocks scenario. So who we serve the best, Kyle, are everyday people investing in real estate actively. So like what we call the mom and pop real estate investor, who've done 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 deals, and they've kind of hit that wall. They've run out of cash. They've run out of credit to keep growing their portfolio. So those are the folks that we work with the best. And what we do is we help them to really leverage their sphere of influence, their connections, to raise somewhere between 500,000 all the way up to perhaps around $2 million in private capital with joint venture partners. So that's our sweet spot. So we don't work with the absolute newbies or people that just got like one deal under their belt. We got to have at least 2 deals done. And we also don't work with the rock stars, the people that are already syndicating. They've already got everything dialed in. They're professional money lenders. They're full-time, you know, done a gazillion deals type people and have everything all dialed in. We're kind of in the middle, the Goldilocks, not too cold, not too hot, just right.
I love it. I love it. So it sounds like, you know, you're kind of taking people that have already taken, it's almost like they've proven by doing a couple deals or more that, hey, I am serious. I'm invested in this. I'm going to do the necessary work to get me started. And then now what you're able to do is almost help to, you know, create a clear path for them towards that higher end rock star, as you know, as you sort of elaborated or describe them as. So
yeah, because most of us get into real estate investing not to have 1 or 2 properties in our portfolio. Most people get into real estate investing to create significant passive income. A lot of people would just love to quit the job and focus on real estate full time. Well, to do that, you have to build up your portfolio. You have to have more doors. You have to have more units. And the way you do that is you raise capital. You have to bring on joint venture partners, raise private capital, whatever that looks like. Most mom and pop real estate investors are not at the stage where they're going to start syndicating deals. They're not going to start their own fund right away. They're going to bring on joint venture partners and grow it that way. So that's what we help people do. And then, you know, most folks are really busy, right? I mean, a lot of the people that we're working with are like you were a few years ago, Kyle. Like they're still working at their job full time. They're self-managing their portfolio.
Yep.
They got families and kids. They got trying to have a little bit of a life outside of all of this. So the last thing they really want is another job, which is figuring out how to set up a capital marketing machine, right? So that's where we kind of come in and we set that all up for them. We plan it out, we build it, we get it up and running, we keep managing it for them. Those are the kind of services that we run.
I love it. I love it. And so if anyone's interested in exploring this, like let's start dropping some of, we've already mentioned the Property Profits podcast. Those who are listening to this podcast, hey, how convenient is that? Pull out your phone, have a peek, definitely worth a listen. I love the target
Especially the
audience that you
episode I
have.
did with Kyle. That was a really good one.
Yeah, you know what? Probably the best one out ever. No,
I didn't want to hurt the other guest's feelings, but you nailed it.
that's awesome. Hey, I so appreciated the time. And you know what? For those who are looking though to really, what I really like about it is really you're highlighting a lot of the ideal client, those mom and pop, sort of investors, as you had mentioned. So you have a lot of people who are coming in and they have done a lot of great things. So it's very inspirational to those who maybe, are just getting started. It's also motivational to those who have a couple under their belt and they are looking to scale. And these people are kind of, they're movers and shakers. They're starting to get things rolling. Sometimes they're a part of your programs, which is fantastic. And of course, there's always something to learn through other people's stories, right? When you see yourself in others, it can be helpful for you to kind of maybe overcome a challenge or just to motivate you to try to do what they're doing, because you're going, hey, if they can do it, I must be able to do it too, right? So I got to get myself started. So Dave, tell me a little bit more, just to give people a sneak peek. You have your 3-part money partner formula. In a nutshell, like what's that all about? You've talked about it at a very high level in terms of who you look to serve and who you're trying to help to raise that capital. What does that look like and sound like for somebody who is maybe going, hey, that sounds an awful lot like me, and I want to learn more about this?
Yeah, well, I mean, the money partner formula, geez, I've got books about that and full on trainings all about that. But at a high level, Cal, it's basically 3 parts. The first part is what we call the foundation, just like a good building, a good piece of real estate. And that foundation has 3 steps. And the first step is creating what we call your ideal investor black book. Who are your ideal investor prospects? Where are they? Going and getting them and putting them all in one place so that we can communicate with them. Second part of the foundation is creating what I call your investor focused website. So a way that you can communicate with people, you can attract people to you instead of chasing after them. And the third part of the foundation is really important, and that is what we call your big check pitch deck, right? Because when you get people interested and they want to see what you're up to, what you're doing with real estate investing, you want to be able to show them something that gets them enrolled, gets them interested without having to be salesy or high pressure or manipulative. So those are the 3 parts of the foundation. Once we got that in place, then we're ready to launch. We're ready to press go. And that also has 3 steps. And the first step there is to do what we call a connection resurrection, where we reconnect with those ideal investor prospects before we start pitching deals. Because a really big mistake I made back in the day, Kyle, was I listened to some damn guru who said, hey, just find the deal and the money will find you. So that's what I did. The money did not magically find me. So I started spamming everybody and cold calling everybody I knew, desperately trying to raise capital. And I didn't raise it, lost the deal, and turned off a lot of really good prospective investors. So we help our clients to avoid that dumb mistake that Dave made by reconnecting with people and setting the stage for the marketing communication. So once we got that in place, that whole connection resurrection, then it's a matter of getting a whole bunch of practice runs under your belt with actual prospective investors. We call that our ninja strategy, because it's kind of a stealthy way to get going and quite often raise your first 6 figures in a couple of weeks. And at the same time, we get things rolling with your money magnet marketing. And that is what I call constant, consistent, edutaining communication, where you're dripping on people, getting them to put up their hand, getting them curious, and booking appointments on your calendar. So they're coming to you pre-educated, pre-motivated, predisposed to invest. You don't have to chase after them. So that is the launch phase. And then the third phase, the last phase, is the leverage phase. So once we got everything up and running, chugging along nicely, now it's time to leverage things. And the first step in that is to do a webinar. So one-to-many presentations instead of just one-on-one presentations. Leverage your time. Do a chat with 10, 15 people all at the same time. Get people enrolled kind of en masse that way. And then we have the capital continuity. So really dialing things in with your marketing, staying top of mind with that edutaining communication, getting those meetings booked on your calendar. And then the last part is amplifying your authority, being seen as an actual real estate expert, right? Because as you know, Kyle, I know you're bringing on investor partners and joint ventures and whatnot. In order for people to invest with you, they need to know you, they need to like you, and they need to trust you.
100%.
So this authority amplifier, because it kind of does all three of those. Lots of different ways to do that, but flapping your lips on a podcast is a very good way. That's one quick shortcut there for doing that. So that's in a very, very high level what this whole money partner formula looks like: foundation, launch, and leverage.
I love it. I love it. And when you map it out that way, I'm sure there's many people who are listening and going, "Oh, like, that makes a ton of sense." And again, I'm a firm believer that, people, we are humans are smart. And if you are dedicated, if you're committed to something, you can make it happen. But what I'm hearing in how you've mapped this journey out, we talk about this quite a bit, is like you have sort of two options. You can do things on your own and self-teach yourself, but that might take you a really long time to do it. Some people might be a little shorter, right? If you're like dedicated and committed, and it's the only thing you do, eat, sleep, and drink all of this learning, fantastic. It's still going to take you quite a while. So having, a nice blueprint laid out for you, a nice foundation, so to speak, to build off of and to grow from there, just to cut down that time and allow you to have a little bit of that, that guidance along the way, is such a massive, massive help. So, I want to, on behalf of the investor community, thank you for what you offer to our network of listeners and those who are looking to grow. Dave, before we ask you to share where people can find out more about you, aside from your podcast, if they're looking to reach out from you, I would love to know, if people walk away from this podcast today and they can only take away one big message, one big takeaway, what are you hoping that they'll take away when they think of Dave Dubeau was on the Invested Teacher podcast and I learned blank? What are you hoping that they'll walk away remembering that they learned from this conversation here today?
Hopefully that massive imperfect action will beat perfect procrastination any day of the week.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love that line. Massive imperfect action will beat perfect. You said procrastination. I was going to say inaction, but procrastination any day of the week. And 100%, my friend, that is such a key line. So friends, get out there, do something, get started on your journey, whether it's getting some help from someone like Dave, from the Invested Teacher team, or any of the other tools that are out there that might be just the next step for you in that journey. Make sure you get started. Dave, thanks again for joining us here. Where can people find you aside from the Property Profits podcast? Where are they going to find you on the web?
Moneypartnerformula.com. Moneypartnerformula.com. We got some free stuff there. You can book a call. There's tons of content. That's the best place. Moneypartnerformula.com.
Awesome. Thanks again there, Dave. And hey, looking forward to continuing our great conversations that we've been having here over the past couple of months.
Thank you, my friend. Take care, Kyle.
Take care now.